Bring up conflict so it can be resolved. There are so many of us out there who try to avoid arguments with whoever they care about, with people in our lives that we're trying to fix issues with. There's conflict within our lives that come unannounced, that do come announced, and sometimes we think there's no point trying to solve it. There's no point trying to bring it up. And if I bring it up, I just won't go anywhere, or the conversation won't go anywhere. Or the conflict will make us even more angry at each other and it won't resolve anything. Or if I bring up the conflict, my partner's either going to say no or reject it, or just not hear me out, or it feels like I'm talking to a brick wall, so why bother? But then what happens is it creates tension between the two of you, and then we just go back to acting like nothing's going on, when in reality there's a lot going on. The only reason why conflict doesn't have a resolution is because either party is too busy trying to be right, and or either or party won't be vulnerable enough to actually accept that they've done something wrong, that they're in the wrong, which means that they have to admit to changing, or they have to say sorry about something, or they have to feel something. Or they're not validated in what they think or how they feel, and neither party are validating each other in what's going on and trying to understand each other so they can create change. And the reason this is happening is because we have so many suppressed feelings that have never been validated, that are too busy always not being validated and being shut down. So we're too busy trying to be right, to have control in the situation, rather than bringing it up to try and be vulnerable enough to create change. And that's why both conversations and conflict never goes anywhere, and we don't think it's worth it, because either party is too busy trying to be right, or they're trying to take control of the situation. Whereas if we both stepped into some vulnerability, if we both brought up arguments or brought up conflict in vulnerability and in love, and stayed true to what we think is right and what we're trying to get across to the other person when they're not hearing us, and then hearing the other person's perspective and what they think as well, then maybe the conflict might actually be resolved because both parties are willing to resolve the issue. And look, there are some times where both parties generally just don't agree, and then maybe these partners or these people are not meant to be as well. Maybe there is times where you just can't simply agree on things, and then maybe you guys aren't meant to be together. Sometimes bringing up an argument or bringing up conflict can create this change as well, but then that means both parties have to be prepared to end things also. So sure, sometimes we step into vulnerability and we create a lot of empathy for the conversation and the conflict, so that way we can try and work through it together. But then also there's times where we're not meant to work through it and we're not meant to agree because we're not actually meant to be together, and that's okay. But people are unfortunately too busy trying to be right, trying to be in control, and too busy trying to get their feelings validated and what they think is validated from their partner because of their own issues, or their own suppressed pain about not being heard, not being wanted, not being whatever it is that you're trying to resolve. It doesn't create space for vulnerability and for actual growth and change. So if we want an actual resolution, both parties have to understand, be ready to be vulnerable, and also be able to proactively be involved in trying to create change for both of you. So we can actually resolve conflict, we can actually move through it, but both parties have to be willing to create that change for that to occur. Rather than trying to come into an argument or a disagreement with trying to be right and trying to prove that they're in the wrong, even though sometimes we may have to really set our boundaries and say that the other party is wrong, and we have to stay with ourselves enough to know that we're in the right and they're in the wrong. That does happen as well. But there are times that we need to understand that we need to be able to validate our own feelings. If we know that we're right, we can't rely on our partner to do that for us. And maybe if we stay with ourselves enough and if we set enough boundaries, then maybe our partner might apologize and or we might get a resolution. But that means they've got to step into some vulnerability to be able to create change, so that way you guys can resolve the conflict as well. Which is why I say both parties need to step into some vulnerability and create an argument and end an argument with love rather than trying to be right. That way we can actually get a resolution, and that way we can actually move forward and grow.